right, hello. Welcome back to A Slightly Twisted Female. I'm your host, Brittany Brew. Thank you for joining. Today, we are going to discuss a really pressing matter. Montana family is reportedly facing imminent arrest after refusing to affirm their 14-year-old daughter's transgender identity. Good to see you guys, and yeah, not too late, only 10 minutes late, and I was getting snacks. You are correct. Love you guys. Good to see you again. So I want to just get straight into this because this will be a shorter stream than usual. I have some contractors coming later, but this is, to me, I think one of the most terrifying culmination of state overreach, regarding the issue of oh, let's see. Oh, hold on. I gotta put the chat back up. 1 second. But I'm gonna pause the stream. Give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Okay, so this is one of those situations where it's really like an all hands on deck sort of thing with the gender critical community. So there is a family in Montana. There is a father and a stepmother. Honey, I love you, my doggy. You're gonna have to go out here. Sorry. There is a daughter and a stepmother who are facing losing their daughter. So this father has been raising his daughter since birth. The biological mother has virtually no contact with the daughter, hasn't seen her in 7 years. There's a lot going on with this child's, I guess, experience growing up. So it sounds that the father and the biological mother of this child have 5 children together. And they kind of split the kids up. So the mother ended up moving to Canada. The father stayed back in Montana in the U.S., got remarried. And the mother has some of the children, and the father has some of the children, and the mother has been wholly uninvolved in the lives of the children that the father has retained since she moved to Canada. So I can only, and this was about at 7, so the daughter has not seen her biological mother since she was 7 years old, which I can only imagine the level of trauma of that. So essentially what's going on is we have another situation of a child who is presenting with symptoms of rapid onset gender dysphoria. Rapid onset gender dysphoria was first described by Lisa Litman in a paper that was published and then retracted by a medical journal on the basis of being transphobic. But of course, as most things, she was right on the money. She describes rapid onset gender dysphoria as being a phenomenon. Let's bring it up real quick. So it was first described by Lisa Litman, in an academic study. Rapid onset gender dysphoria, or ROGD, is a term not supported by evidence, which is so insane because it's absolutely, let's see, here we go. Is this Lisa Litman? All right, hold on for 1 sec. It's so hilarious to me that, all of these, like state sort of co-signed organizations try to discredit Lisa Litman's concepts of rapid onset gender dysphoria, despite the fact that it describes clusters of characteristics of teenage girls, this exploding phenomenon of teenage girls who are presenting and self-identifying as transgender seemingly out of nowhere. And it seems that Lisa Litman has characterized it as something that has sort of spread through social contagion. It occurs usually around puberty. It can, happen within entire friend groups where everyone in a friend group is identifying as trans man or trans mask. Again, this is seemingly after the child has never expressed any such, symptoms or feelings of gender dysphoria, but it usually happens around puberty. That's why I say it's, rapid onset gender dysphoria. And then it can progress very quickly. We're now the child wants to, move right into medicalization. And the problem is we have a issue where public schools are becoming like a safe haven for trans kids, wherein the child can, and sometimes it can either be initiated by the child, where the child will go to a teacher or some kind of a guidance counselor and talk about being trans identified, or, as we're often hearing and seeing, it'll be the teacher or the administrators themselves who will reach out to a child that they suspect might have a trans identity, call them, over, and basically start asking questions and kind of almost guiding the child into believing that, hey, maybe I do have, a gender identity that is different than my natal sex. And what will happen is, if the child agrees that this might be, underlying of what's going on, the school will then call in a meeting with the child and the school administrators and basically ask the child if the child wants to involve the parent in sort of socially transitioning the child. The schools usually want to get started right away. If the child says that they do not want the parent involved, they don't want the parent notified, a lot of schools have created policies wherein they will keep this information from the parent. Again, these are state schools. These are public schools. These are government funded institutions. They're really indoctrination camps. And it's like, God, the farther I go, the more I want to pull my kids out of school and homeschool. It's really scary, and you really need to be on top of the curriculum. Even so, the school district right next door to me, where my nieces go, have this policy. I did an expose on it in a live stream. I'll post those links. It's important to understand that these policies do exist. They are very real, and they are happening all the time. So and it sounds like this is a lot what happened in this case of this 14-year-old girl, where again, she went to a school guidance counselor, expressed feelings of like suicidality, depression, and then also a sort of rapid onset gender identity. And the school, responded by contacting children and youth, and things progressed from there. The parents who know this child understand that just because the child came to the conclusion that they are really a man, and that she's not, that she's really a boy, and she's not actually the girl that she is, that does not mean that is something that you are to jump on and begin affirming medically, or really affirming at all. We know that studies show that children who are socially transitioned, which can seem like benign, and by socially transitioned, so there's social transition and medical transition. Social transition is stuff that is seemingly as benign as, just using cross-sex pronouns, right? So for a girl, calling him he, him, his, right? Or, changing the child's name from a culturally female name to a culturally male name, and affirming that the child is trans. And it doesn't necessarily require medicalization, but we know that once children are socially affirmed, the social affirmation to trans medicalization pipeline is very strong. There's like an 85 to 90% chance that those children will go on to medicalize. Conversely, children who are not affirmed, children who are where reality is affirmed to them, where it's their feelings are acknowledged. We understand that you feel this way, and we can explore those things together. The fact is, the immutable fact and the immutable reality is that you are not actually a boy. You are a girl. However, we want you to understand that doesn't require that you like things that are, typically associated with girls. And it absolutely still permits room for you to like and do the things that are associated with boys, right? And if the issue is that this is some sort of a trauma response, well, let's investigate that further. Let's understand why you're feeling this way, right? And when a reality is affirmed, and the gender is, the feelings are explored, more deeply without gender affirmation, children will grow out of feelings of dysphoria upwards of like 95%. And I really believe that for the ones who don't, there's either very serious psychiatric underpinnings or homosexuality that the child does not really understand and is having difficult times coming to terms with. So again, rapid onset gender dysphoria. Let's see. Of course, they're just dismissing it, you know, without really anything. Okay, so again, quickly, this is Lisa Litman. This was March in 2019 when a lot of this stuff was like exploding on the scene. And Lisa Litman unfortunately works with GenSpect, which I think is a colossal mistake, but Lisa Litman is an important figure in this, and she is somebody who matters. After Lisa Litman published her papers, then we had irreversible damage that was I just had, what is her name? Irreversible damage by guys, what's her name? Reversible damage. Oh, by Abigail Shrier, right? So Abigail Shrier then went and wrote a book based on the concepts therein of, Lisa Litman's concepts of rapid onset gender. Yeah, thanks, Hans. Yeah, thanks, Sarah, guys. Yeah, you're right. Thanks, Shinobu. Rapid onset gender dysphoria, and this is really critical, sort of like ground zero reading for anybody who is sort of just entering this topic. And even those who have been in this topic, if you haven't read it, this is important to read. And it really accurately describes to the T of why we're saying the fact of the matter is that referrals to gender clinics are overwhelmingly teenage girls and not boys, right? There is a huge disproportion. It is teen girls who are being transitioned, and seems almost like counterintuitive because all of the attention is on the trans-identified males, right? That's where we're focusing our attention. Those are the ones who are getting the awards and the accolades and who are, being shoved out into the public eye, who are, dominating girls' sports, who are really reaping all the benefits and rewards, whereas trans-identifying females and girls, teen girls, they are taking on the brunt of the damage, the irreversible damage that comes with rapid onset gender dysphoria and early, gender dysphoria and medicalization. And yet they're really not being acknowledged and not benefiting in any really, major way. And it's clear that the etiology of male gender dysphoria and female gender dysphoria come from two very different origins, where, female gender dysphoria typically seems to be more of a trauma response, more of like an escaping misogyny, escaping the sort of sexualization of the child's, the body as they're growing into themselves as an adult. Whereas, male, like gender transition and transgenderism has an etiology in which they want to self-sexualize. It's sort of the opposite. They want to sexualize themselves, so they move towards being a female because, again, in their mind, femaleness is sort of akin to just being like a sex object. Whereas women are trying to desexualize their bodies, or they are lesbians who are, having a difficult time accepting the fact that, being a lesbian is a sexual minority, right? And they're thinking that maybe that they'll be able to expand their dating pool and have more success in combating like the loneliness and the want and the need to partner if they just transition to being a man. Okay, so so let's see. So getting right into let's see. Again, if we can just really quick, so rapid onset gender dysphoria. It's important to understand rapid onset gender dysphoria so that we can better understand this case. And I need to go quick because I don't have a ton of time for this stream. But again, this is from Lisa Litman. So again, this was on March 19th, 2019. Lisa Litman basically set the world on fire with this study that she released that was later retracted and, you know, very controversial, and she is so on the money with this. Purpose. In online forums, parents have reported that their children seem to experience a sudden or rapid onset of gender dysphoria, appearing for the first time during puberty or even after its completion. Parents describe that the onset of gender dysphoria seemed to occur in the context of belonging to a peer group where one, multiple, or even all the friends have become gender dysphoric, and the transgender identified during the same time frame. Parents also report that their children exhibited an increase in social media, internet usage prior to the disclosure of a gender identity. So we see a lot, again, you know, internet grooming. You know, that is virtually always somewhere in the equation here with really males or females who have gone on to claim a transgender identity. Let's see. Recently, clinicians have reported that post-puberty presentations of gender dysphoria in natal females that appear to be rapid in onset is a phenomenon that they are seeing more and more of their clinic. Academics have raised questions about the role of social media in the development of gender dysphoria. The purpose of this study was to collect data about parents' observations, experiences, and perspectives about their adolescent young adult, AYA, children showing signs of apparent sudden or rapid onset of gender dysphoria that began during or after puberty, and develop hypotheses about factors that may contribute to the onset and or expression of gender dysphoria along this demographic group. For this descriptive exploratory study, recruitment. So again, I mean, there's really nothing like controversial about what she's doing in the fact that she's simply collecting, you know, the experiences and data from parents and their observations. And the fact that it was retracted, that it was so widely contested, is such a testament to how politicized academia has become, wherein opposing ideas are not permitted, period. You know, we're the only option is to affirm. And the danger that has caused is you know, unquantifiable. And that's why, again, it's like, this is why the state really does not have our children's interests at heart. This is rooted in, you know, transhumanism and a push for, you know, sort of like the medical experimentation on the bodies of mentally ill children, and also like sort of hypnotized children who are hypnotized by this new revolution in the internet. Again, this stuff, I didn't grow up with social media. I'm only 36 years old. I didn't grow up with any of this stuff. My first smartphone was when I was in college, right? And I graduated in 2010, where it's, you know, 14 years ago. It has not been that long. So the cultural and the sort of like cognitive shifts in a revolution that significant, where, you know, now for the first time ever, we have access to people at our fingertips. People can present themselves in any way that they want through their avatar online, and how that shapes growing minds, I think is so huge. It is so huge. It is something we must not underestimate the impact of. Let's see. Results: there were 256 parent-completed surveys that met study criteria. The AYA children described were predominantly natal female, 82.8%, with a mean age of 16.4 years at the time of survey completion, and a mean age of 15.2 when they announced a transgender identification. Per parental report, 41% of the AYAs had expressed a non-heterosexual sexual orientation before identifying as transgender. So the 41% are lesbians, which is a huge representation considering the relatively small proportion of lesbians that there are in the overall population of females. Many, 62.5% of the AYAs have reportedly been diagnosed with at least one mental health disorder or neurodevelopmental disability prior to the onset of their gender dysphoria. Range of the number of pre-existing diagnoses, 0 to 7. And I think that the two most significant pre-existing diagnoses would be an eating disorder. So again, this would have, manifested as eating disorders and the sort of like pro-bulimia fads that were going on back in the 90s, and it seems to have warped into this transgenderism. It's about control of the body. Additionally, autism. Again, autism when girls are reaching puberty and they don't really understand the sort of, societal expectations of them, or it's difficult for them to sort of grapple the sexual changes that are going on in their body and people's reactions to that. And so it seems almost easier to just sort of like disconnect from that entirely, because of the sort of social pragmatic language and the sort of, difficulties for children with autism to be able to conceptualize and have a firm grasp over that sort of communication and understanding of social nuance. In 36.8% of friendship groups described parent participants indicated that the majority of members became transgender identified. That is significant. The majority of members in a friend group start to identify as transgender. Parents reported subjective declines in their AYA's mental health, 47.2%, and in parent-child relationships, 57.3%, since the AYA came out. And the AYAs expressed a range of behaviors that including expressing distrust of non-transgender people, 22.7%. And all of that is absolutely fueled by this academic, narrative that parents don't understand, and that it's trans people have this very unique and chronically unique experience that cis people just don't get, and they're being oppressed. And I think these children are really, really internalizing these messages and manifesting these feelings of like anger and distrust and frustration. AYA has expressed a range. Gen X-ray says experts are now saying that autism is connected to trans as opposed to trans being a risk for the autistic mind. That's so aggravating. I don't doubt it for a minute. Stopping spending time with non-transgender friends was seen in 25% of these children. Trying to isolate themselves from their family was seen in almost 50%. And only trusting information about gender dysphoria from transgender sources in 46.6%. Most, 86.7% of the parents reported that, along with media internet usage, along with the sudden or rapid onset of gender dysphoria, their child either had an increase in their social media internet usage, belonged to a friend group in which one or multiple friends became transgender identified during a similar time frame, or both. In conclusion, the descriptive exploratory study of parent reports provides valuable detailed information that allows for the generation of hypotheses about factors that may contribute to the onset and or expression of gender dysphoria among AYAs. Emerging hypotheses include the possibility of a potential new subcategory of gender dysphoria, referred to as rapid onset gender dysphoria, that had not been clinically validated, and the possibility of social influences and maladaptive coping mechanisms. Parent-child conflict may also explain some of the findings. More research to further explore the roles of social influence, maladaptive coping mechanisms, parental approaches, and family dynamics in the development and duration of gender dysphoria in adolescents and young adults. And they shut that down. Tell me what about that sounds unreasonable. Tell me what about anything that you just heard sounds so flagrantly unreasonable that it needed to be eradicated from the academic sphere, eradicated from public discourse, tarnished, thrown out? Tell me. No, because they were threatened, because she figured it out. She hit it on the nail on the head. So now as we explore this story right here, we're going to see how much Lisa Litman's ideas are coming to fruition, and how dangerous the state is in their, you know, sort of collective refusal to acknowledge the validity of what was said. And it makes you really wonder, what is the agenda here? What is the agenda? And we must fight back. This is, when I saw this, it was like I wanted to deal with other topics, but I was like, this needs to be everyone dropping everything. This needs to be top of the priority list. Once parents lose the right to parent their children, to protect their children, and the state is able to step in and impose these destructive, damaging things. And I'm going to have Richie on. I got kicked off of Twitter because of as you guys know, my people are like just trying to troll me and basically, you know, force my banner to be removed and things like that. But I'm going to have Richie on, who's a detransitioner, and hearing from detransitioners is so critical. To anybody who is like, oh, why do we need to listen to detransitioners? It is critical. Okay? And for these so-called gender critical trans people, we need to hear less from them, virtually nothing from them, and a lot from detransitioners. They are going to tell us what is going on. Okay? And this is terrifying. This should be at the top of everybody's priority list. Gabrielle Clark, Gabs, who has been on my channel twice, who I've done a lot of work with, boots on the ground. She has reached out to this family, interviewed them, and on her site, affirmingreality.com, Gabrielle is, here, like really quick, is doing a lot to help this family. So I would love to see you guys get with Gabs. And I'm going to keep sharing what she's working on behalf of this family. It's crucial. And I'm going to reach out to this family, see if I can try to get an interview. Because this is, I really believe this is top of our priority list. We cannot allow the state to have this level of unfettered access over dictating, you know, our children. Hold on. Let's see. Sorry, guys. Okay, let's see. All right. They took off my banners and stuff, said it was pornographic, which is so absurd. So absurd. Okay, again, so Gabrielle Clark, this is the parents here. On January 23rd, I spoke with Krista Kolstad about what is happening to her family in Montana. After I hung up the phone, I sent out emails and DMs, assembling my team at Affirming Reality Connected. Gabs is really great at like pulling together resources. ARC's Affirming Reality's second in command, the Peak Lady, which is Maddie Watkins, who's awesome, took point on this operation. She made the story go viral. She also heads up ARC Women. So yeah, a bunch of people are involved. Dr. Harriet Jarman, Debbie Stevens. So there's a whole group of people. Since that first day, the Kolstad family has had to leave their home. They are being threatened with arrest for violating an unjust gag order. And that's another thing. The court is now threatening to arrest this couple because they were given a gag order in which they aren't allowed to talk about their story. If that is not insidious, this is happening in the United States of America. We must fight back before we turn into Canada. We must fight back. This should be terrifying to everybody. They have a lawyer to represent them for part of the case, but we are still searching for other legal resources. And the Kolstad family has been able to raise over $20,000 for their legal fees. The Kolstads are preparing for a fight. Yeah, please reach out. Contact the Montana governor. We've got to just flood the governor's office with letters, phone calls, emails. Do not let them rest. Do not let them rest. So let's get into this. So this is from Reduxx, from the lovely Anna Slatz. February 5th, 2024. Breaking. Montana family reportedly facing imminent arrest after trans-identifying daughter was removed from their custody. And this is the family here. Okay, and this, they've been raising this child since birth. The family at the center of the custody battle with Montana Child and Family Services over their 14-year-old transgender daughter. And just to be clear, like CPS is like full of like people who have like, associate's degrees, in counseling and stuff, or like, these like local like community college or like local schools, and like, these people are just, I know, because I got hired by Children and Youth to be an investigator, right? And it was like, again, the requirements and the background was not super extensive in terms of needing to have like really specific, and a lot of judgment calls and personal, kind of like your own personal values. The family at the center of a custody battle with Montana Child and Family Services over their 14-year-old transgender daughter is reportedly facing the imminent arrest after speaking to media about the ordeal. That's terrifying. Krista and Todd Kolstad had previously been ordered by a judge to remain silent on the case, but chose to speak out about their situation last week. Reduxx was the first to break the story after speaking to the Kolstads about their tragic situations on January 29th, which is my birthday. In the interview, the Kolstads revealed that their 14-year-old daughter, Jennifer, which I guess is Jennifer, I think, is a pseudonym to protect her identity, had been removed from their custody after they declined to actively affirm her newfound gender identity. Montana Child and Family Services, CFS, argued to a court that it was in the child's therapeutic best interest to have her gender identity, quote, respected, and a petition was presented for the child to be sent to a family member in Canada. I wonder, she must have been sent to the mother. So the mother, of course in Canada, right? Trying to get that child back is going to be a nightmare. This mother hasn't seen this child in 7 years. How do you abandon your 7-year-old child? And now she's deemed as like the more fit parent than the father who has been raising this child since birth. And the stepmother who has been there for her full time for the past 7 years. I guarantee you the source of the trauma almost guaranteed resides in the fact that she was abandoned by her mother. It's insane. Insane. Montana Child and Family Services. Okay. The removal was the culmination of a months-long battle between Kolstads and CFS, which started August 18th, 2023, this past August, after Jennifer claimed to a friend that she was suicidal and suffering from terminal cancer. The friend reported the claims to police, who reached... So why is it, again, if she's saying she's suicidal and suffering from terminal cancer, and I'm not saying that we ever ignore a child saying that, but clearly if the child's not suffering from terminal cancer, right? So she's lying about having one terminal illness, but we need to take it at face value that she really does have this gender identity and that this isn't some sort of coping mechanism or trauma response. And we just need to, case closed. No more questions needed. Let's go ahead and sterilize this child, cut up her body. And that's the right course of action. That's terrifying. That's terrifying, and it's insane. And parents now do not even have the authority to protect their own children. This is a state-sponsored kidnapping. And honestly, there needs to be a protest. There needs to be a protest. We need to go outside of the governor's office, and actually, maybe that's what the fuck I need to go, get started on. Because we have to take to the streets at this point. We have to take to the streets. Yeah, we have, some more access with Twitter and being able to speak, but the message is not getting out fast enough. Children are being hurt. We must take to the streets and push back. This is an overreach of state and government powers. We must protect parental rights. Once we lose parental rights, once we surrender our right to raise our own children according to our own values, that's when things will get scary. Honest Han says, this is why the true trans is so dangerous. The true trans sort of like, concept is so dangerous. Marcus Dibb, for example, saying that cutting off her breasts and excising her ovaries and uterus brought her peace. 1,000%, Hans. 1,000%. Same thing with Blair White. Blair White, who has been people have been all like blowing up my inbox, telling me about like Blair White's new, wanting me to respond to Blair White has a new interview where he's finally beginning to explore the idea that maybe transition was a trauma response to sexual abuse. I think this is implied that his father might have sexually abused him, sexually assaulted him, and implied, a lot of other things, and that, he had suffered a lot during his childhood and is finally beginning to explore the idea that maybe transition was a manifestation of that. And after spending how many years telling us that transition was the best thing that ever happened to him, it was the right move for him, that he was the oh so special, uber super, like real true trans that really needed to do it, and it was all legit, and it's just who he is inside. And you get all these people, again, who are like, oh, but some people really do need transition. First of all, no one needs transition. Okay, these are all cosmetic. These are, a physical approach to a psychiatric condition. And again, even these people who were so happy with their transition are finally having to admit that, it wasn't as great as I've been portraying it to be. Same thing with Buck Angel. Buck Angel had to finally come forward and be like, yeah, I almost died from my uterus going septic. But hey, man, it was great for me. It's the best thing I ever did. Do as I say, not as I do. I'm the extra special true trans. So any parent who's committed to this Transhausen by proxy, it's a Munchausen by proxy with a trans focus, where they're sort of projecting this identity onto their children, or Transhausen by proxy, which is being projected by the state or by the schools, who are so committed to clinging to this concept that the child is really trans. When you say the true trans exists, then then it's like you might as well just say it's all real. You might as well just acquiesce to all of it. Because once you say that some people are truly trans, you're basically saying that really, once again, anyone can be trans. Because who the hell is going to raise their hand like, yep, you know what? Gotta be honest with you. I'm the one who's bullshitting. I'm not really trans, I guess you got me. No, everybody's going to dig their heels and be like, I'm truly trans. All of these Blair White true trans clowns that I remember I went through his follower list or his following list to see the other people that he's following. He went and unfollowed a lot of them after I exposed a lot of them. He's got to know who I am. But I went and I went through his following list, who he follows, and it was a lot of these other so-called true trans, libertarian, conservative, trans-identified males who are the super legit, transsexuals and stuff. When you really look into it, they're all AGPs. They're all so clearly AGP, quintessentially so. But they're the really true trans. They're the safe ones. None of them have a coherent definition of what is HSTS is homosexual, transsexual. Which again, I'm really starting to believe that there's not much of a difference between autogynephilia and homosexual transsexualism, other than if you look at what's his name, Brianna Ivy. God, it's I didn't want to do another stream on him because I'm all right, people are going to start getting mad because I'm really shooting a dead horse. And also I just don't like him. So I have no filter with him. But I was going through even more of his videos. He is an autogynephile to the T. He's sitting there doing these photo shoots where he's doing this. And he's just it's always him and his big plastic teeth and just this. And it's all this. And they're yes, yes. And it's what are you doing? What are you doing? How grotesque. And he's so masculine when you see these behind the scenes photos that haven't been edited yet. These videos. And he's crouching down and going like this. It's like, you're 23 years old. It's so vile and grotesque. And it's like, well, like, women are just these like sex objects, and you just want to like become it so you can own it and control it. There is no difference. I really don't care. But I do think that the ideology of female, transgenderism is different. Although I do think that autoandrophilia exists to some extent. I don't think it's exactly the same. Yeah, shame on the medical profession. Good God. Mary Berry says both AGP, so both autogynephiles and HSTS, which is homosexual transsexuals, want to role play as women. So autogynephiles have always been described. So it was from Ray Blanchard, who's a sexologist. So it's like a Blanchardian theory. He's the one who first kind of described autogynephilia, and he always said that autogynephilia was separate from homosexual transsexualism in that it had like a separate etiology, and that any man who is bisexual or heterosexual who is like a transsexual is an autogynephile, which is like a sexual fetish, whereas for a homosexual transsexual, it's different. It has more to do with their sexuality, but it's still a sexual. It's like they don't want to have sex as a man. They want to have sex with other men as a woman, okay? They like, again, it's like all like feeling like going like this, and like they want to have sex as a woman. It's a fantasy, it's a fetish. They get off on the idea of being, like dominated as a woman and being the sort of submissive. And the difference is these men can take the costume off at any point, okay? And there's this idea that like homosexual transsexuals are like, less like have like the true gender dysphoria, and that's not true. That's not true. I've heard autogynephiles describe almost, very similar feelings, persistent feelings that these homosexual transsexuals pursue. And there are a lot of autogynephiles who, a lot don't, like 86% do keep their penis, but there's a good deal of homosexual transsexuals who keep their penis, and there's a good deal, there is a percentage of autogynephiles who do get sex reassignment, the synthetic sex surgery, right? So, there is, again, so the whole true trans narrative is so dangerous because, again, then you have these like, children and youth and these schools who are going to find these kids, but well, this one truly is trans. And there's no objective metric for any of this. No child benefits from being chemically castrated at 10 years old. No child benefits from being put at risk of osteoporosis by the time they hit 27. No child benefits from being put in early menopause at age 17 after only menstruating for like 3 or 4 years, and then being at a risk for premature dementia and brain calcification and synaptic, decline, because our brains require estrogen for synaptic health and function. You can only be on exogenous hormones for up to 10 years before they become severely carcinogenic to the point that your cancer risk far outweighs any potential benefit of these cosmetic, external drugs. But look at Buck doesn't care. Buck's been on for 30 years? Almost died because her uterus went septic because it can't properly clean itself because our bodies require estrogen. But this is a good idea. Let's start this child, because this child just presented with some feelings. She just said that she has terminal cancer. That wasn't true. Oh, but we've got to believe, take her, fully at her word, that she's really a man trapped in a girl's body. Again, this is a fantasy. This is a state-sponsored religion. This is a state-sponsored mythology. There is a separation of church and state. Keep your religion out of our lives. We don't subscribe to your church. Period. Let's see. The friend reports the claims to the police, who reached out to the Kolstads to confirm that Jennifer was all right. Later on in the evening, a CFS caseworker arrived at the Kolstad home for an inspection and private interview with Jennifer, at which point the child declared that she had drank toilet bowl cleaner and overdosed on pain medication please understand that you can decline to allow. Parents also need to learn their rights. And I think my next live stream is going to be, we're going to work together to come up with a blueprint and make sure that parents understand what their rights are when it comes to child protective services, what they are allowed to say no to. You should always get a lawyer. You don't consent to anything. You don't need to let them into your home. They can go file, go file with the court and get court orders and stuff like that. But then you have a chance to lawyer up. You don't ever have to let these people into your home. It's all voluntary. Now they have to make contact with you and you got to answer the phone or whatever. You do not have to consent to allowing them a private interview with your child. We've got to learn what our rights are. Parents do have rights. We need to exercise them and stand by them. And we need to work together. We need to defend each other. This threatens all of us. Later on that evening, CFS caseworker arrived at the Kolstad home for an inspection and private interview with Gianforte, at which point the child declared she drank toilet bowl cleaner and overdosed on pain medication. Obviously, the child is in severe distress. Obviously, they're warped. So we just assume that what the magic silver bullet is, oh, let's go and then chemically castrate this child, sterilize her. How does that help? You listen to detransitioners who are mourning the loss of their healthy, functional body parts. Your health is such a gift. I mourn the loss of my ovarian function all the time. I mourn it. I grieve for it. I had to put myself into premature iatrogenic menopause to save my life from cancer. I had to. It was necessary. At least I believed at the time. There was like a chance I might not have had to do it. It makes me mad, but whatever. You understand? But it doesn't mean that I don't grieve that loss. We cannot be so rash to... God, your health is such a gift. Protect it with everything. Everything that you have. Protect it for our children. Protect your children's health. Help them understand how critical it is to protect their health. Once you lose it, it's gone. It's so easy to take it for granted. It's like when you have a toothache. Have you guys ever had like a really serious toothache and it's like throbbing and you can't get in right away, that you got to wait like 2 days and you're in so much pain and it's like all you can think about, pain becomes your world. And you just keep thinking like, God, I took it for granted just feeling okay, feeling normal. You know, there's times when I was so sick from chemotherapy and I'm like, God, I would do anything to just feel okay again, to just not feel sick. And you realize what a precious, all the problems you think you have. It's like, honestly, as long as you have your health, you always stand a fighting chance at whatever else is going on in your world. Once you start losing your health, that's when things get scary. Though she showed no symptoms of illness and had no access to either substances, Gianforte was taken to the hospital on an emergency basis for blood work, which conclusively determined she had fabricated her claim of overdosing. This child is now showing a history of lying about pretty severe things, but we've got to fully just take her word and act on her claims that she's transgender. She also does not have a medical history of cancer, despite having claimed to her friend that she was terminal. So we understand that she doesn't have cancer, but we can't somehow comprehend that she isn't trans, that that's not a real thing. The Kolstads attempted to inform CFS that Gianforte had a tendency of attention-seeking behavior and fabricating wild claims, which seems reasonable and understandable from a child who was abandoned by her mother at the age of 7 years old. Our most important relationship in our lives as child is the parent of the same sex. To be rejected by your own mother, and where she took some of her siblings and went to raise them and completely stopped contacting her or seeing her for 7 years after moving out of country. I would be doing stuff to get attention too. Imagine that deep-rooted pain, that feeling of rejection, your mother who is your first love, your ecosystem, the first love of your life. It's so innate. You're born with this deep, drive to be close to her. She's your world. You don't understand that you're separate from her at first. The pain of rejection, of being just thrown away, even as a child as old as 7 who understands. I cannot imagine. Of course, I would be trying to get attention too. The Kolstads attempted to inform CFS. Oh, I hope this. Oh God, hold on. The Kolstads attempted to inform CFS that Gianforte had a tendency of attention-seeking behavior and fabricating wild claims, but throughout the innocent, Gianforte's gender identity was the main point of contention. The child told CFS that she identified as a boy named Leo and that her parents were abusive and not willing to facilitate her gender transition. Again, she has verifiable lies, but then we take her at her word, for these other claims, right? Gianforte spent 2 days in the hospital first. And again, this is important because when you look at, when you look at what was reported by Lisa Litman, she talks about these children, these girls who are experiencing rapid onset gender dysphoria and how they're basically groomed to believe that their parents are not trustworthy, that anybody who isn't fully pro-trans doesn't have their best interests and is literally endangering them. And they're being told that, they could basically fall into despair and suicidality if their parents aren't fully affirming, and that they need to means that they don't really love them. That's what these children are being told, and that's what they internalize to themselves. And this is what this child is obviously manifesting. Gianforte spent 2 days in the hospital for suicide monitoring, at which point the Kolstads agreed with CFS that she would benefit from being sent to a residential treatment facility for counseling. That's a reasonable thing. But again, it's only as good as the therapists are, and as good as the ideology is for them. This could have ended up becoming like an indoctrination camp for this child if the therapy is affirmation-based. While there were a number of this is why you don't want to send your kids away. Don't let anybody get a hold of your kids, residentially and stuff. Go with them. Go do, intensive outpatient where you're present, where you can hear what's being said, and what's going on. While there were a number of Montana-based facilities floated as options, the possibility of Gianforte being sent to Wyoming was also mentioned as an unlikely alternative. On October 22nd, the Kolstads were told that Gianforte was next in line for a bed in Billings, but later on the same day, they received a call from the hospital informing them that she would instead be sent to an unnamed facility in Wyoming. So they were just taking this child. Faced with a number of unanswered questions and a concern about Wyoming's laws allowing children to transition, the Kolstads expressed a hesitancy to allow Gianforte to be sent across state lines. Do not let these people into your home. See the cascade of you start to lose control once you open the door for these people. And again, these people thought we have nothing to hide. We love our child. We're doing what we believe is right. And you underestimate how dangerous CYF can really be. Especially when they're totally captured and indoctrinated. Faced with a number of unanswered questions and a concern about Wyoming's laws allowing children to transition, the Kolstads expressed a hesitancy to allow Gianforte to be sent across state lines. Within 10 minutes of refusing to immediately sign paperwork, releasing Gianforte to the facility. Hold on for 1 second. Okay. I gotta go. We are going to finish this, okay? We are going to finish this. So it says Montana Child and Family Services arrived at the Kolstad residence with police and served them with paperwork temporarily removing Gianforte from their custody. This is terrifying. We're going to continue this. I got to go. My contractor is here. This requires really our full attention, all hands on deck. Okay, so we'll be back to discuss the Gianforte Kolstad case, the parents who are, the state-sponsored kidnapping, and I will see you guys next time. Love you.